And welcome back to the channel. Mr. Acolyte here, coming at you with my starter guide for the Green Goblin. Green Goblin is without a doubt one of the most hyped and one of the most fascinating characters in all of Marvel Tokon. The fact that he has constant access to his iconic glider not only gives him really interesting ways to move around the screen, but it also gives him insane combo and mix-up opportunities. In this guide, we're going to break down everything you need to know about the Goblin step by step so that you yourself can get out there and start mixing, fellas. If you end up finding this guide helpful at all, consider leaving a like, as it does help out big projects like this and it does help out the channel, and I do greatly appreciate it. If you want to see more content like this in the future, including more guides, ranked match reviews, and just general fighting game stuff, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming up next. But with all that being said, let's not waste any time and jump right on into it. Okay, the Green Goblin. Let's first start by breaking down his base kit. That way we're all working with the exact same information. First thing we'll talk about will be his special moves. And for the record, when it comes to special moves, I'll be referring to them as neutral special, forward special, back special, and so on. This is for simplicity's sake, just because this is how, when you turn the game on, that's how the game refers to special moves. So I want to stay consistent with that. Okay, first up, back special. Back special is his Lariat. The light version comes out quick, has pretty decent range, and is an all-around pretty solid poke, and will break the wall anytime it connects with the opponent. The medium version comes out a bit slower, has a bit less range, but it is an overhead. That means the opponent has to block it standing, which makes it a pretty decent mix-up tool. The H version comes out quick, lasts a long time, and is also an overhead. This makes it a strong pressure tool and good combo filler. Moving on to his forward special. Forward special is the Pumpkin Bomb. Now, when it comes to the Pumpkin Bomb, there is a lot going on here, so let's take it one step at a time. First of all, when you throw any Pumpkin Bomb, it'll bounce off the floor, and then once it makes contact with the opponent, it will explode. If the opponent blocks it, it'll bounce one extra time, giving you better pressure options. However, keep in mind that the opponent can destroy the Pumpkin Bomb by attacking it. When it comes to the different strengths, the light version bounces very low to the ground. The medium version bounces high in the air. And the H version's a little bit of both. All three can be done in the air as well. And then on top of all of that, there are 4 different types of Pumpkin Bombs. The first is the Sticky Bomb. This limits the opponent's movement options. The second is the Explosive Grenade. This simply blows up and will launch the opponent on hit. Third is the Poison Bomb. This will poison the opponent on block and on hit, but does not cause any stun. And the last grenade is the Electric Grenade. This will pull the opponent into an electric trap on hit and on block. Now, the important thing to note about the 4 grenades is that no, they are not random. They are in a set, unbreakable order. It will always be sticky, explosive, poison, and electric. In that order every time. And the order carries between rounds. So if you end the round on poison, the next round will start with electric. So if you want to utilize the bombs properly, there is a bit of memorization required. It's very reminiscent of Captain Ginyu from DBFZ. Moving on to his down special. Down special summons his iconic glider. The light summons the glider to snipe the opponent from above. The medium version causes it to do an extremely iconic attack. That's right. You can be hit by your own glider. So when it's coming back, you have to duck or jump in order to avoid it. Both you and the opponent can be damaged by this. In the H version, honestly, it's so insane, I'm just gonna let it speak for itself. Yeah. It's just a Gatling gun that either carries the opponent away or completely locks them down on block. Definitely one of the best EXs in the game, in my humble opinion. All of these moves can be done in the air. And it should be noted that the medium version will remember your height, so wherever you call it, that's the height that it's going to return to. And we can't talk about glider attacks without mentioning the glider gauge. On the bottom left-hand corner, I had to move out of the way, I was kind of blocking it there. The bottom left-hand corner shows the glider gauge. Every time you do a glider attack, it takes away from your gauge. You'll also notice the big X on the gauge. This means the glider is busy and you cannot summon it again until that X goes away. And his final special move is the neutral special, the Batarang. This is one of those special moves that's deceptively deep. There's a lot more going on with it than you might think at a glance. Starting with the number of projectiles, you can throw anywhere from 1 to 3. The strength of the button decides the trajectory of the Batarangs. The light version will throw it straight directly at the opponent. The medium version will throw them at an angle. And the H version is kind of a mix of both. So just that alone gives you a lot of different trajectories to work with. You also have the air versions, of course. But where it starts to get crazy is the fact that you can mix and match each different strength. For example, if I start by throwing a light Batarang, I can choose the next trajectory from either medium or heavy if I want. So I can go light medium, light light, or light heavy. It goes the other way too. I can go medium light, heavy light, or medium heavy. Basically, you can get really creative and just cover all sorts of insane angles. And if all of that wasn't enough, you still also have the option of canceling his Batarang into any other projectile. So for example, you can go from Batarang directly into bomb, or Batarang right into glider. Speaking of his glider, now that we've covered all his special moves, it's time to talk about his unique mechanic. And man, is this a fun one. Pressing back in unique will let you not only summon the glider, but also allows you to ride it. This is Goblin's secondary unique stance, where he actually gets to fly around the screen on his glider. You can see that while he's on the glider, it makes the glider gauge go down. The longer you're on the glider, the faster the gauge depletes. This is to basically prevent you from just stalling out the match, because you really can fly wherever you want and you fly very fast. So they kind of put a little bit of a limitation on there just so that you can't completely drag the game out forever. Now, of course, flight isn't the only thing that glider stance gives you access to. You also have access to all of his previously mentioned special moves. And on top of that, the glider also has its own unique attacks. Light will do a fast swipe attack. Medium fires a tracking missile. And H does a full screen lariat. Just like with the summon attack, every attack that you do while mounted on the glider costs you extra gauge. The difference between the summon attack and a stance attack is that a summon attack cannot spend more than what you have. So you can see here, I did the down medium and it put me at 1%, but it cannot burn me out. Stance attacks are a little bit different. If you use a stance attack and you don't have enough energy for it, it will put you into burnout. See how the X is permanent now? Now I cannot summon my glider until I get out of burnout. This happens whether you simply just stay on the glider for too long, or again, if you spend more glider cash than what you actually have in your inventory. So keep that in mind because the burnout does last a very long time. And if you go into burnout, I recommend either tagging him or trying to land your super to get the gauge back. All right, so now that we have a really good understanding of the Goblin's base kit, let's go ahead and move into the how to play section and actually start talking about how to approach the many different aspects of the match. As usual, we'll start with the neutral being the most important aspect of any fighting game. If you're unaware, neutral is the part of the match where neither you or the opponent have a clear advantage. Every time a match starts, you and your opponent are both at neutral, and neutral doesn't end until one of you makes contact with the other. When it comes to the Goblin's neutral, this is honestly an area where he really shines. A lot of his special moves are specifically designed to hold the neutral down. Starting with his Batarang. This is just an all-around amazing neutral tool, not only because of the angles that it can cover, but because of the cancel options. Starting with the angles, it's both nice and convenient that he can cover the ground and the air at the same time. The combination I'd recommend for the ground is either LHM or LLM. And that's because these two combinations cover the air and the ground really well. In the air, I'd recommend LHM. This one's kind of obvious. If you're full screen, it covers the God angle. If you're a bit closer to the opponent, though, you can keep it simple and just do MMM. If you find yourself in Fireball Wars, remember that the EX version will pierce through normal projectiles. Neutral option number 2, the bomb. This move was basically created with neutral in mind. The main idea behind the bomb at neutral is to simply limit the opponent's movements. The light version is really good at slowing down opponents who are trying to approach from the ground. And the medium version stops opponents from approaching from the air. If you throw either of the light or the medium from the air, they'll usually get to the opponent much faster. The startup is a little slow, so it might feel a little difficult to get grenades out safely sometimes. But there are ways to cover it and make it a little bit easier. The first and most obvious is to, of course, use your assists. The second is to simply use the EX. The EX comes out super fast, especially the air version. If you're trying to just get the grenade out quickly, EX is your go-to. But besides all of that, don't forget that you can cancel your Batarangs directly into grenade. This is the best way of getting grenades out quickly and easily. Neutral tool number 3, the glider. All 3 glider summons have 3 specific areas where they're really strong. The light is best used in the air as an anti-zoning tool. The medium version can be a little bit tricky to use at neutral due to the fact that you have to avoid it when it's coming back. But you can use this to your advantage. One of the best ways, in my opinion, is to summon it after you put a grenade down. Whenever a grenade is traveling, that's something that the opponent has to try to either avoid or deal with. And the light version actually bounces at the perfect height to avoid the glider. That gives these two moves some pretty decent synergy when used together. You can even add in the Batarang to give yourself even more options. And then there's the H version. What really needs to be said about this? If you have the meter, just do it. I'm not even kidding. While the opponent is locked down by this, you're free to just run up to them, call your assists, whatever. I really can't stress enough how worthwhile this attack is. If you have the meter, use it. And of course, we can't talk about his glider's neutral options without talking about flight mode. What can you even say about flight mode? Simply put, It makes everything that we just talked about better. Remember when we talked about batarang angles? Well, they get even better when you're on the glider. For whatever reason, just doing the light version will throw the batarangs directly at the god angle, so you don't even have to worry about doing any sort of crazy combinations to try to hit that angle. You just hit them by default when you're on the glider. And not just that, you can move while you're firing. You also still retain your ability to cancel batarangs into bombs. Speaking of cancels, don't forget about flight mode medium. You literally fire a homing missile that tracks the opponent's location. And even this can be canceled. So as you can see, all of the Goblin's projectiles have really good synergy with each other and are basically all meant to be used in tandem to help you hold the neutral down. Now, to close out this section, let's quickly talk about his neutral buttons, because of course we can't win the match with just projectiles only. Now, admittedly, this is where his options are a little bit weaker, but not terrible. His best neutral poke is definitely his stand medium or his 5M. As you can see, it's got really good range, and it's got a pretty decent hitbox, so this is your go-to move to check advancing opponents. And then there's the GOAT, Jump Medium. This button is straight up out of DBFZ. When used during an air dash, it's honestly just incredible. It's got insane range, and it is a godlike cross-up button. If you feel like you're struggling to get set up at neutral, don't forget about your assist. Simply calling an assist before setting up can make all the difference. And because the Goblin has so many persistent neutral attacks, this makes him a great character for active tag shenanigans. All right, now that we have an insane amount of neutral options to work with, let's go ahead and talk about what happens when we finally pin our opponent down. Let's start talking about some pressure tools. So obviously this is the Goblin's strongest area. His neutral is great, but his offense is actually insane. First up, let's cover all of his pressure buttons, starting with his stand light or his 5L. As far as 5Ls go, this one's pretty generous in terms of range. It reaches pretty far, comes out pretty quick, and has good recovery. Even better is his crouch light or his 2L. It has effectively the same range as the stand light, but it has the added benefit of hitting low. So simply by poking with this button, you'll keep the opponent honest and force them to hold down back, preventing them from walking out of your pressure or jumping out of your pressure. Next up, crouch medium or 2M. This is where things start getting a little dicey. His 2M is a low attack, which is good, but the problem with it is that it's a little on the stubby side. As you can see, even from this range, it's not connecting. This problem gets even worse when you combine it with some of his buttons. To prevent this from happening in your strings, you're gonna have to use his auto combo. In most instances, you're gonna start your pressure sequence with your low 2L. That's because, again, it's a low attack. It forces the opponent to block. From there, you're gonna wanna do your stand light. As you can see, when you do the auto combo, he tracks back into the opponent, so this prevents your 2M from whiffing. 2L is a good stagger, and I do recommend using that when you're poking at your opponent and trying to open them up. But just be aware that if you put too much of a stagger gap in there, 2M is very likely to whiff. Your generic block string should look like this. Remember to put gaps in between your button. If you do a clean string like this too fast, it doesn't give the opponent the opportunity to hit a button, which means even if they are mashing, you won't catch them and punish them for it. That's why in between each button, you want to take your time, stretch it out, and look for those gaps. The longer you're on your opponent's block, the more likely they are to become impatient. When it comes to ending your block strings, if you've exhausted all 4 of your buttons and the opponent still hasn't pressed anything, this is a good time to go for the Batarang. As you can see, after your last button, you'll usually be pushed a safe distance away to where the Batarang is a nice sort of check. And due to the Batarang's cancelable nature, you still have a lot of options here. If you have an assist available, one of your best tools is definitely your overhead. Calling the assist directly after an overhead does 2 things. The first being, if the overhead hits, you get a combo. And the second is, if it's blocked, you get to keep your turn. If the opponent does block your overhead, it's not the end of the world because Goblin is actually a great active tag character. I mentioned this in my Loki guide as well, but the name of the game when it comes to opening people up in Tokon, in most instances, is to utilize active tag. He can definitely solo mix without having to tag, but if you do feel like tagging, he has some great options for that, namely his EX overhead. Because this animation lasts so long, it's perfect for setting up other characters to mix. For example, let's start our mix-up with the medium overhead. After the medium overhead, we'll call Spidey, and after Spidey forces them to block, we'll do the EX overhead. Now, while they're busy blocking all of that long animation, we'll tag into Spidey, and that will give him a guaranteed gapless mix-up opportunity. So as you can see in that very simple example right there, that was 3 different overhead mix-ups all off of just one single assist call. That's why active tag is king in Tokon, because one single assist call gives you multiple mix-up opportunities. But now it's time for the main event. Yes, active tag is really good in Tokon, but Goblin is one of those blessed characters that doesn't exactly need it. His built-in mix-up, again, is so diabolical that once you master it, it's going to be very, very difficult for the opponent to block any of your sequences. So how does the Goblin mix actually work? Well, it's simple and complicated at the same time. It's simple because it all comes down to the glider stance. The reason why this stance is so devious in terms of mix-up potential is because of his light attack. As you can see, Cap is standing up to block it, because yes, this is actually an overhead. So obviously having a light attack that's omega fast and is an overhead that's completely unreactable is amazing. But how is this a mix-up? Because for an overhead to work, you need to be able to threaten a low as well, right? Well, the Goblin can do that, and he can do it amazingly well from the glider. Whenever you're in glider stance, you can press down and heavy to do this low dash. And if you hold down and heavy, he actually does do a low attack. So combining the overhead light with the low dash fake in the actual low, it turns the glider stance into pretty much just an unreactable pressure trap. The reason this all works so well is because every action is cancelable. Every time the opponent blocks one of your overheads, you have the option of doing another overhead or canceling the overhead into the low dash. So you can literally do overhead, low dash, overhead if you're fast enough. And then of course, if you hold the button, you do an actual low. But believe it or not, that's only the beginning of the mix-up. We still haven't even covered the most important part of it, and that is the air H. Because of the fact that, again, everything is cancelable, you get another action to work into your cancels, your mixes, and your fake outs. And if that wasn't enough, Air H also allows you to steal the corner to do instant cross-up attacks. Okay, so now that we know how incredibly amazing the glider mix is, how do we actually get there? There's a couple of ways. The most notable, I'm sure you've seen it in plenty of YouTube videos, and you may have seen it in mine if you watch any of my match videos, but is off of a knockdown. We'll cover that in a later section, but for now, let's talk about how to get to glider mix on block. So setting up glider mix on block. There's two main ways to go about this. The first is a button that we haven't talked about yet, and that is your standing unique or your 5U. Every time your 5U connects, you'll go directly into your glider stance right in front of the opponent. Now, without an assist, this is insanely unsafe and the opponent can hit you out of it immediately. However, with an assist, this is why it's a good idea to try to save at least one assemble gauge for Goblin's offense, because he desperately needs at least one assist in order to get his glider set up. You can also set the glider up off of forward unique or 6U. There's two big differences between 5U and 6U. The first is the distance traveled. When you do 6U, he does this lunging kick. And the second is 6U has way better frame advantage after the block. So if you call an assist here, you're in an even better position for mix-ups. Now, of course, the usual fighting game rule applies here. The stronger a mix-up, the less the opponent is going to want to deal with it. So anytime the opponent sees you in glider stance, because they know that it's basically impossible to block, they're going to be doing defensive actions like crazy. So if you're going to play the Goblin, I would highly recommend getting your perfect reflex down, because people are going to be assist countering you like crazy. If this is something you still struggle with and you need to practice, there's a great method you can use right here in the lab. Open up the menu, go to training dummy settings, then go to counterattack settings, and then choose one of the slots. Right here, I chose slot 2. Pick one of the crossover counters. It doesn't really matter which one. And then press triangle to change the block count. Block count decides when the opponent activates whatever you tell them to do. By default, it's going to be set to 1, meaning the moment you make contact, they're going to automatically do it. Obviously, this is not going to make for very good practice, right? That's why we want to go back in and set that to random. Once it's on random, now that it's on random, you can practice your block strings, and if they do it, you can test yourself to see if you have your reactions down. This is something that you should learn in general in this game. It's very important, but again, I feel like it's extra important for the Goblin, because the moment you get to this situation, the opponent is going to be trying to get out like crazy. So you don't want to be in a situation where as soon as you finally get your glider set up, everybody's countering you. Another very, very popular option is the assemble counter. This one is a little bit easier to just bait out, because of the fact that when you're attacking, you're free to move around, so you can literally move backwards, see if they actually do it, and then lunge back in on them for a counter. All right, now that we have some literally unblockable mix-ups in our possession, let's go ahead and talk about what happens after those mix-ups hit. Let's start talking about some combos. As usual, this is an area where there's not really a lot to discuss, so we'll go ahead and go through a montage of his routes. For Goblin, I'm gonna do it a little bit different than I did for the Loki guide. It's still gonna be in different sections, like from no resources to more resources, but Goblin being a set play character, a lot of his routing is the same on purpose. You kind of want to do like 1 or 2 specific combos You just want to change the ender. So that's how a majority of his combos are going to be set up. So keep that in mind when we're going through the combo section. When you're playing a set play character like Goblin, the most important thing isn't really damage or anything like that. It's just what does the combo give you. So keeping all that in mind, let's go ahead and break down some routes. Okay, now that we've got a whole bunch of different combo routes to work with, let's go ahead and transition into the final section of the guide. Let's talk about what happens after our combos connect. Let's talk about some Oki. Oki, if you don't know, is the moment of a match where the opponent is getting up off the ground. Anytime you land a combo and you try to pressure the opponent when they're getting up, this is what we call Oki. In Tokon specifically, some characters really struggle with finding strong Oki options because the opponent has so many different ways of getting off the ground. The first way is by holding up. This will make them stand up in place quickly. The second is by holding back. This will cause them to roll away. And the third is by holding forward. This will cause them to literally roll forward. By mixing up all three options, the opponent can make it difficult to predict where they're going to be. While dealing with this can be a problem for most characters, It's absolutely not a problem at all for the Green Goblin. Being a set play character means his knockdown situations are designed to lead to mix-up situations, which of course leads to another knockdown situation. But before we get into his character-specific Oki options, let's go ahead and talk about a couple of universal ways we can stop the opponent from rolling. Universal option number 1, simply break the wall. You can see on the bottom right, after a wall break, it says knockdown with an exclamation point. That means the opponent cannot roll. This means as long as I time my dash properly, I can get a guaranteed poke on the opponent's wake up that they have to deal with. Option number 2, landing a super. Anytime you connect a super, as you can see, it once again says knockdown. The opponent has to stand straight up, which means they stand straight up into pressure. And option number 3 is after a wall splat. So once again, if you decide to save this for the end of your combo, you force the opponent to get up into a mix-up. And that brings us to the 4th and best option for the Goblin specifically, and that is the combo limit knockdown. In the combo section, you saw many routes where we purposely broke the combo limit. The reason for this is, on a normal knockdown, you see the opponent very quickly gets a chance to roll. However, anytime you break the combo limit, they do that massive backflip animation before they're able to roll. Because of that gigantic backflip, this means you have all the time in the world to get completely set up. Once you get to this point, just remember everything that we talked about in the pressure section. Especially keep in mind what we said about reversals. That goes doubly for wake up. When the opponent's getting off the ground in this situation, 9 times out of 10, they're gonna do a reversal. So don't always try to take your turn. Use the glider's mobility to your advantage. You can definitely hover around, you can back away. It's very, very easy for you to bait. If you end up baiting and you're wrong, 9 times out of 10, it's not really gonna hurt you. But if you end up baiting and you're right, the opponent's right back where they started. The power of set play. And with that, we have reached the end of this starter guide for the Green Goblin. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Hopefully by now you feel like you learned everything you need to know about the Goblin. Hopefully you feel confident that you can get out there and start mixing, fellas. If you found this helpful at all, consider leaving a like, as it does help out the channel a lot in videos like this, which take a lot of work. I do really greatly appreciate it. Consider subscribing if you want to see more content in the future like this. This is only my 3rd guide in 1 week, and I still got a lot more planned. Let me know in the comments below. You guys have been mentioning what kind of characters you want to see guides for. Right now, I'm focused on Spidey and Storm. So those will probably be my next guides, most likely. Like, definitely Spidey soon. After that will probably be Storm. And after Storm, I'm not sure. The gates are kind of open. I'm still experimenting around, but definitely let me know what you guys think. If you still have any questions about Goblin, let me know in the comments below. I always keep an eye on the comments, so I'll try to get to that as soon as I can. But with all that being said, once again, I appreciate you guys for watching. Hope y'all have a good one, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.